I am very happy to have my next guest join us. She is a talented singer, songwriter, producer, and musician who just dropped her debut album called Woman on the Internet. It is Orla Gartland. Orla.
Hey.
Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for yours as well.
How are you? Where are you checking in from? This is a very bright and very clean place.
I know. Thank you. This is just my room. I'm in London. I'm in West London. And I've spent way more time in this room than I ever thought I would.
As most of us, I'm sure. The plant is doing well, I see.
Thank you. I placed it in the background specifically to make it look nicer.
I was about to say, this is more appropriate for a business meeting than an artist musician's private space. Did you just come off a business call?
No, it looks like that. No, I do have a studio down the road, which is where all my music stuff is. But there's still plenty of stuff. I need to just maybe get this kind of stuff in the background.
Because we were joking off prior to this about these backgrounds and things and whether or not they were real.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I need to get a couple more music things.
Yes. You know, when I was introducing you and I was referencing the album title, I feel like Woman on the Internet needed some echo and reverb and what have you. It's like a proclamation.
Yeah.
And this being your debut album, I feel we need to have some context in terms of how you've gotten to this point. You've been releasing music for quite some time, playing music for quite some time. And the thing that I think is so notable, at least for me, is the fact that you started playing violin, supposedly, at 4 years old. How many strings were on this violin? How were you able to learn how to get the finger?
I wasn't very good. I wasn't very good. But neither of my parents played music, but they were really obsessed with the idea of, from me onwards, I'm the oldest, of having some music in the family. And they just let me go into a music shop and pick whatever I liked off the wall. And I just was drawn to that for some reason. I was definitely convinced you held it like a guitar. And then I started lessons and that wasn't the case, but we'd already bought it. So I just had to see it through.
Wow. Why the violin? Do you recall what it was in particular? Was it because you had been exposed to some kind of music involving violin that kind of sparked that interest?
Yeah, I had a couple of people in my family that played traditional Irish, I say violin, but really I played fiddle. It was jigs and reels. I don't know if you're familiar with Irish music, but it's a very particular kind of thing. And it's a really good musical culture because it's very inclusive. You basically learn the same sort of 30 songs as everyone on whatever instrument it is you pick up, whether that's fiddle or you can play a concertina or a whistle or whatever. And really the idea is that it's very word of mouth in the way it's passed down. And if you stick with your instrument long enough, all you'll do is just learn those same 30 traditional songs again in a more difficult way. So it's very inclusive, and the focus is on just being able to join in and jam with everyone really quick. Whereas when you learn music in a classical sense, you have to you got to do your scales and your theory. There's so much going on before you get to do the playing. Whereas I think with Irish trad, what I liked is that you could kind of pick up one song and you could just you could wing it right from the beginning. And it's very unpretentious kind of music, which I really like. I wasn't very good for a long time, but that one wasn't really the point. It was just about joining in, and that's still very present in Ireland. If you go and travel up and, up through the West Coast, you go to Galway or Dingle, or you could walk into a pub and people would just be jamming music. And it wouldn't be that unusual if you played for you to be like, hey, can I just hop on and have a go? And it's the more the merrier, So I think, I really like how inclusive it is.
And it certainly builds up confidence when you're starting off so young. You don't have to worry about the fear because of the fact that you said, I want to play this instrument, I'm going to go play. And you're already sucked into that world. So you didn't have to, deal with some of the feelings of self-confidence and judgment and all those things, as you mentioned, collaborative, inclusive. So it just felt like family to you.
It's so wholesome. Yeah, it's so pure. And I think that's, people do so many activities when they're a kid, and now I understand why. I loved when I was younger doing dancing on one day, music on one day, drama on one day, and your parents are just driving you around to all this stuff. And yeah, at that age, you don't even know what you like. You just love like seeing all your friends, and it's like you're taking every day as it comes. And like you said, your self-awareness and your, you know, self-esteem issues that will follow and being a teenager, they just haven't kicked in yet, and you're just living life. It's such a good time to start anything, you know.
Which is quite interesting in terms of your musical journey. You start off young, you get brought into this world, you're playing with people that are a lot older than you, teaching you things, and you're learning on the fly. And the way that you got introduced to a wider audience is from your bedroom by yourself, playing covers and so forth on YouTube.
Yeah.
What was that feeling like, kind of regressing back into solitary space?
Yeah, that's such a good point. I think it's such a different experience being a solo artist than a band. Like, I sometimes do wish that I had been in a band. I didn't know that many people. Once I left the violin, started moving into guitar, started getting older, I just knew less and less people that played music. So yeah, it returned being this like solitary secret. And even more so when I was filming myself in my room and starting to put up YouTube videos, that was something that was very close to my chest, and it wasn't like something I did with others. So I think it was, yeah, it's not as fun playing by yourself, but what it did give me was like a lot of time and space to start writing songs at my own pace and just like explore that and sort of flirt with that idea and be a teenager. And I was so bad at expressing how I actually felt, but I found it very easy to say those things in songs. And I think that's something I wouldn't maybe have done if I was playing music in a group or in a band. Like it was very personal from the off. So there's good and bad. And now I get to do a bit of both, where I get to write on my own and demo on my own, but I have a band when I play live, and then they fill in the blanks, and I write songs with other people, and I'm in other people's bands as well. So it's yeah, now I feel like I have a happy medium. But you're right, yeah, it went from like community to solitary and then back again.
Right. This debut album, fantastic. Such a great introduction, proper introduction, as I said earlier, to a bigger audience. It's something that you did on your own. You're releasing it on your own record label. You did almost everything. And, you did this during a time when everybody was in lockdown mode and to themselves. And you mentioned in the past that this is a snapshot. You wanted to create a snapshot of a period of your life.
Mm-hmm.
And being at the time, I guess, 25, were you going through a quarter life crisis of sorts? Were you kind of reevaluating your life as a person, as an artist, and so forth?
Yeah, totally. I think, 24, 25, 26, I mean, it never really ends, but it's ripe time for a good crisis. And yeah, that definitely runs through some of these songs. I think your 20s are an interesting time because it's a different kind of chaos to your teens. Like, I've grown into the person I'm going to be to some extent, but also like, does that ever really end? There's still a long way to go. And, you're at an age where like some people are like no idea what they want to do with themselves, and they're flailing around, and other people are like married with kids and mortgages. So it's such a crazy age to be. My friends are a similar age, and I'm watching them all at different stages figure it out. So I find it really interesting as a time. It's a special kind of turbulence.
Yeah. It's interesting how you put these songs together on this album. It starts off with Things That I've Learned, and then you end with Bloodlines. And Things That I've Learned is kind of like, in a way, when it is your birthday and you blow out the candles, and then someone says, okay, what have you learned in the last year, right? You're asked to make some kind of speech with words of wisdom. And so you start off the album with these words of wisdom. And I'm saying this facetiously, of course. And then you end with Bloodlines, and you're like, we all end up like our mother.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way of charting it. I think it starts off confidently with like this kind of impression that I have all the wisdom to drop and all the secrets, and then I think by the end you realize that like no one does, and maybe it's as simple as that, But yeah, I like the birthday party analogy.
There's a lot of irony in the title of the album, Woman on the Internet, because you started at such a young age putting out covers and all that stuff. And there was also at the time, this kind of asterisk next to people's names in terms of their popularity and appeal and all this other stuff. Oh, you're just a YouTuber who makes music. They never took those type of people seriously. And the irony today is record labels are chasing all the people on TikTok who are making music and going viral and all those things and signing them up. And it's like, how is that any different than the people that made music on YouTube? In fact, the people that make music on YouTube were, I guess, a little bit more deliberate in terms of showing more of their artistry in their songs, as opposed to just a 15-second clip and dancing to it, or making a music video in 15 seconds to expose their works. What is your view on TikTok and how the industry is reacting?
Yeah, I feel really lucky to have sort of started at a time where people had a lot more attention to give. I think YouTube, when I started, it was very pure and wholesome. No one really had an agenda. No one really made a career out of it yet. So it just felt like this big sort of show and tell. It was like, here's a song I've written. Here's a painting I did. You know, no one really knew why they were there. And that was why it was so sweet. TikTok is a lot more deliberate. It's a lot more about grabbing people in the first 2 seconds, and it can be an amazing tool for musicians. I've seen a lot of people like absolutely kick off on there, and I think it's such a great thing. Like, the reach that you can have is so powerful. But what it does to your music, I'm not a huge fan of it, because I think you kind of essentially have to dumb things down to survive on there, to be honest. To lean into the vibe of the platform, you have to take your thing and reduce it to its lowest common denominator. And so I'm not a huge fan of that. But I've dipped my feet in now and then. I'm not above it. Like, none of us are above it. I've tried my best now and then, but I also know when to put it down. So yeah, I think it's interesting. I think you're right. I think the stigma that YouTube gave certain musicians was interesting. And I found it a lot when I came to London and started doing writing sessions. They'd be like, oh yeah, like, you're the YouTube girl. And now I don't think that would even set anyone apart. And it was quite a weird kid thing to do at a moment, but that's also why I was so lucky to do it when I did, and to sort of at least start when I did. And I think really now I think about it, no one really comes from nowhere. I'd much rather be the YouTube girl than like the girl from The Voice, or like that girl that, whose uncle worked at a record label or something. It's like, if everyone comes from something, at least the YouTube route or the internet route is a very self-made one. And it's one where I've been able to retain a huge amount of control over my like output. And I'm pretty grateful for that.
This is an amazing debut, great introduction to everyone. I feel you've done an amazing job with this. Congratulations on this release. Certainly look forward to seeing you perform here in the States.
Thank
you. Best of luck with everything.
I'm definitely working on making it over to you guys next year.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time, and best of luck with everything.
Thank you, Pete, and you.